everybody. How are you? It's been 10 minutes since I said it'll be 10 minutes. We got a wonderful night. Normally the headliner doesn't start the show, and I'm not going to do any of my jokes, but we have a really wonderful show, and we're recording this. This is going to be my album, and it'll be out in a little less than a month, December 13th. There are CDs and books of mine for sale, the first album and the first book, but I don't have any merch for this tour or this album yet. It's all like in the works. I should have it very soon. So I did a very goofy thing, and there's envelopes on most of the seats, and the seats that don't have envelopes have Post-it notes. The Post note is a QR code to pre-order all of the merch. There's t-shirts, lighters, long sleeve t-shirts, stickers, and CDs. But underneath the Post-it note on the envelopes is it's a self-addressed envelope to my house. And then inside is a basically middle school order form for like Yankee Candle or something like that to pre-order the merch that way. No one's taking me up on it. It's more of a bit that makes a couple people laugh, and it costs me nothing to do. So I do that. We are also running a 50-50 raffle. Half the money will go to the winner. The other half goes to support the comedians. Yeah. Before we start, I just want to thank a few people who are helping me put this together and do this. That's why I have this thing. But behind the cameras and sound, we have my dad, Dave, my brother Toby, and Matt Belfiore helping run all of that. So thank you to you guys. They just waved, but you couldn't see them because they're behind a curtain. And then, let's see, my girlfriend Haley is running the door and collecting the 50-50 raffle and selling my merch. So thank you to Haley. And then our comedians tonight. We've got Kyle Seeley hosting, who is wonderful, and I've worked with him for about, a while. I think it's a year. He thinks it's 4. Not really sure about that. Then we got Michaela Abujaude opening up, who is a regular at my open mic. I've watched her go from her first open mic ever to now and onward. It's great. Then Praise eBay, who I don't know where. Oh, Praise. Praise is going to do a guest spot, and I've also watched from his first mic, and he's soon to be a cross-country comedian, and very excited about that. Then Tyler Tuttle, who this person I actually can't find. Tyler Tuttle is going to do a feature set, who is wonderful. I work with him pretty consistently for about a year. You're going to love him. Josh Day, who I'm shocked is here because he's better than me at this. He's also going to do a feature spot, and then I'm going to do my hour. Most of those people I've done the recordings with me so far, so they need not apply to what I'm about to say. But if you're any of the people I just listed, if you haven't already collected this, you have a gift from me that you can get as you leave. They're all the same gift, so once one person opens it, you all know what it is. But I think over there we have a gift from Matt, Josh, Michaela, Tyler, Praise, and Kyle. The weird order I wrote their names. But anyways, you guys ready for your host to do some time? Fantastic. Get it for Kyle Seeley, everybody.
This next person, the thing is, comedy is a very cold, hard, painful fucking game. And you meet people along the way that they gather communities. They're really supportive in and of themselves, and they just surround themselves with really incredible people. I am honored to be a friend of Maxwell Shultz. I'm honored to host this show. And I'm honored to introduce him to him now, So, Maxwell Shultz, everybody.
He's right. My name is Maxwell Shultz. It'd be weird if he lied about that. Before I start my set, I realize I should address that some of you are in the jokes and just accept that they're jokes and don't argue. I'm the one with the microphone, so shut the fuck up. Anyways, I work at a pizza shop. A little bit about me. I deliver pizza for a living, which means 2 things. 1, that I'm poor, and 2, that I have a car. It is a weird middle ground to be in. And if you've never worked in a pizza shop, at least around here, I should tell you that they're usually run or at least managed by very conservative people. And recently, one of the most conservative people I work with begged the question, what would you do if you found out your daughter had an OnlyFans? That's my Alex Jones voice, the most conservative living person I can think of. And then he followed it up by saying, my daughter would never have an OnlyFans. And I wanted to be well, of course she would. You're the parent that, the kid would rebel against. And then we can get behind disliking, or in this story, disliking the conservative guy, because it's the kind of conservative person who, doesn't like gay people. So you know what I mean. I'm queer. We'll learn that later. And then it was my turn to answer the question, and I said what I think and still think is the correct answer, which is I would support my child, but from a distance. Like, I'm glad they're making a living and not living with me, but I want absolutely nothing to do with the situation. Then our dishwasher, Sage, chipped in. That's his real name, and he's 17, and he said, quote, "I would subscribe." And then Sage doubled down and said, "It's kind of like a lemonade stand. You'd want to buy the first cup." No, Sage, it's not like a lemonade stand at all. If my child has a lemonade stand, I will be a proud parent to buy the first cup. However, if my child has an OnlyFans, and under any circumstance I receive that first nude photograph, I'll kill myself. Like, that's not survivable. That's terrible. I can't live through that. And so I went up to Sage about a week later and I said, "Hey man, can I put this in my act?" And he said, "Of course you can, but you should know it's not a joke, it's how I really feel." And it was then that I decided I don't think Sage should grow up to have children. But I'm not so sure how I feel about the conservative guy having kids either. So what I'm saying is I'm the only fit parent at my, fit father at my job, which raises two major problems. One, I'm not a dad. And two, I'm not in particularly good shape. There's a child labor shortage at my job, which as a liberal, I support no children in the workplace. But the guy at the beginning of the joke might argue with me. Also, around here, a lot of pizza shops are run by or organized by or whatever, a lot of Greek people. And I've worked in pizza shops consistently for my entire adult life, which I hate admitting to people. But you would have thought I would have picked up a lot of terminology. Really, I've learned two words. The first is feta, like the cheese. I think we all know that one, right? The second is malaka. I know you guys, but other than you guys, does anybody know what that means? Don't say it out loud, but like, is anybody familiar with the term? All right. If you're not, I'll teach you. At the first job, I was told it meant jerk off, in the sense of like, fuck you, you jerk off, like somebody from like the 40s or 50s would say. Then I switched jobs and was corrected that that's not quite the English translation, but I was close. What it actually means is the #1 jerk off, and it's used in place of fuck you, so it's the weirdest insult. To me, that's like going up to somebody you disagree with at work and going, "Fuck you, man. You masturbate better than anybody I know. And I know that. Take pity on me because I don't masturbate well. And fuck this guy because he's really good at it." I don't know, it's dumb, but then I went to that guy who gave me the correct translation. He was like, "Yeah, that's what we mean." I'm like, I don't get this culture. Like, that's such a weird thing to just go around saying to people. I don't know. Let's see. At my job, pretty regularly, about once a month maybe, I deliver to the woman who was the first person to show me her breasts. Which, if you like boobs, that's a very strong memory. And if you don't like boobs, it's probably still a very strong memory. But she doesn't remember doing this. I'll tell you the story. I was like 16, let's say, and I was drunk and stoned at the Market Basket across the street. And this gaggle of teenage girls in a Toyota Corolla drove up to us, did donuts very quickly around me and my friends. We accepted our death, and then as a reward for not killing us, one of them jumped out and flashed us and then drove away into the night sky. But this woman grew up to be very like pretentious and rich and snobby and things that I'm not, and therefore resent her for. And I just wanted to like quit my job and deliver to her one more time and be like, "I remember." And she'd be like, "That didn't happen." And I'd give her like slightly more information than I gave you guys, and she'd be like, "Don't tell anybody." And I'd be like, "Okay." When in reality, I tell strangers all the time. My friends don't remember that as the night we almost died, by the way. Like, instead of it being like a near fatal situation with drunk teenagers doing donuts around us, I remember that fondly as, "Oh, I know where I was when Max first saw boobs." Like, I know exactly where Max first saw boobs. I can put myself there mentally, and I guess that's how teenage boys become men. I don't know. But we're getting off track. We're getting very off track. Back to Sage, the dishwasher. He's 17. And when I was 17, I wasn't very concerned with my child's future career in pornography. It didn't occur to me once, to be completely honest. I was much more concerned with like school and girls and things like that. And when I was a freshman in high school, I had a crush on this girl named Caroline. I thought she was the funniest, sweetest, prettiest girl I'd ever met. And the problem was that she was very popular, and I grew up to do this. So you can imagine there was quite the differential between us. And one day out of the clear blue sky, she messaged me on Facebook and said, quote, "Hey, how are you?" And like my brain exploded, my heart fluttered, I got butterflies in my stomach, and what I should have said was anything normal. I should have said like, "Hey, what's up?" or "How are you?" or "History's hard, right?" Instead, what I said was, "Why are you talking to me?" And then she never did again. But I use her real name in that joke as well, because I think she still lives somewhere around here, and maybe she'll hear the joke. Maybe she'll see me at a show or hear the recording when it comes out. And she'll be like, "Oh, he didn't hate me. He was just weird and depressed, and that's why he acted like that." And then she'd think for like 45 seconds, max 45 seconds, and go, "Wait a minute. It's been over a decade. And not only does he think about this, he tells strangers all the time, clearly. This is a very rehearsed bit." And she'd never talk to me again. But at least she'd know why, right? You guys know in high school how it's the butt of jokes from like bullies to be like, "Haha, you're gay," and the kid that says that runs away. 10 years later, they come out as gay. It's the tale told its time, Beauty and the Beast. There was this kid, Cody, that I went to high school with who was made fun of in the same manner, but his was more researched or thought out. His was, "Haha, Cody, you're gay." I pointed at you and that's your name. I fucked up. "You're gay because you watch hentai, which is probably drawn by men. So, haha, Cody, you're gay," and then they would frolic away. And they were right. Cody watched a lot of hentai. He told us about it constantly. But here's the problem, right? I grew up to be kind of gay and kind of like hentai, so I need like a stone cold straight person to watch a bunch of it. Tell me the results, and that way I can know whether or not I can fuck Cody. Because I may not have liked him in high school, but I hear he has a great dick. We're not in a bar, but I feel like this joke will still play here. Any of you guys drink in high school? Not a soul drank in high school? All right, how'd you get your alcohol? I think I've asked you this before, but... You stole it. All right, great answer. Stole it. I've gotten that a lot. I've gotten cool siblings, older parents, older siblings, cool parents. I've gotten cool neighbors. I was dating somebody older. One audience member once said I was a girl, which is both the most correct answer I've gotten and the scariest. Anyways, me and my friends consistently got our alcohol from the homeless. But I don't mean that we like stole their brown paper bag. I mean, we would go up to this guy, Steve, who was down the street actually from where we are right now. And we would say to him, "Hey man, if we give you $20, will you go in there and get us $20 worth of 40s? And in exchange, we'll give you one." And he would say, "Sure." And if that's not ridiculous enough, we would then walk, or as we got older, drive him across town to build a bonfire behind an elementary school till 3 or 4 in the morning, blackout drink, and then walk or drive him back to downtown Haverhill where he lived, only to repeat the next day for 4 or 5 years, depending on how long you were in high school. I tell you all this to tell you my belief that I don't think teenagers should vote. Because all the while that I was doing all that stuff, I was a highly elected official of my student council in high school and a very corrupt politician. It was a mess. When I was that age, I was quite the big stoner. I still am. Some things never change. Old habits die hard. And to my parents when I was a kid or a teenager, getting high was equivalent to like murdering the neighbor's dog. Like not a human, but something smaller and cuddlier and more affectionate. It was very bad is what I'm getting at. And I was in my attic bedroom at my parents' house smoking a joint with a friend of mine thinking, surely I can get away with this, and surely I couldn't. And my mother knocked on the door and said, "Max, what are you doing up there?" And instead of being honest, I quickly stripped to my underwear, ran down my attic stairs, and opened the door this much to say, "Nothing." Because it was better in my head to convince my mother that I was having gay sex at 16 than smoking a shitty high school joint. And once again, I was right. She didn't bring it back up for about a decade. And when she did, I was smoking a joint once again, but this time I was in her backyard. And when she said, "Max, what are you doing?" I told her the truth, because it's very inappropriate to strip to your underwear in your parents' backyard. And this time, instead of getting mad at me, she said, can I have some? And so I said, sure. And now my mother's a full-blown stoner. It's one of the reasons we're cool. Now, we used to not be cool. I'm going to give you a couple examples of why we weren't friendly for a while. And I didn't write a third one because I'm a hack and a fraud. The first is when I was like 10 or 11 years old. I watched all 3 Back to the Future movies on Nick at Night, and I fell in love with them. And then I ran across the house to tell her about it, and she said, Max, that's great, but you know, they'll never make another one. And I said, oh no, did Doc die? And then she gets a smile and a chuckle, and she goes, no, Marty has a horrible, incurable disease that he will never recover from. And then she explained Parkinson's in graphic detail to her 11-year-old son. The other example I give, and these are true, is a bunch of years after the Back to the Future story, I was dating my first serious romantic partner named Carrie, who hates this joke. And my mother asked me over and over and over again, have you lost your virginity yet? Have you lost your virginity yet? Have you lost your virginity yet? Which is a really weird thing to ask your child. Like, that's weird to ask your kid, you fucking? But she would ask it like very weird, like weirder than that. Like it would be like just interjecting in conversation. It's like, what's your name, sir? Yeah. Trayvon? That's like if Trayvon walked in, we've never met before, and I was like, hey, I'm Max. He said, hey, I'm Trayvon. I said, that's cool, you fucking tonight? And you went, what? And I went, it's kind of cold out. Like nothing to do with the first question. That's how my mother would ask me about my virginity. And after I didn't answer her for about a month, she turned to Carrie and said, quote, why won't you fuck my son? And then about a month after that, Carrie took my virginity. That's really why my mom and I are cool. She gets me laid. She's my wing woman. It's great. When I was in school, I think we can all relate, have some similar story to what I'm about to tell you, but we had career day, and the way my career day was set up was that like a month in advance, you would pick like 6 people to see for an hour, and then a month later you would see those people. And I picked cosmetology as one of my things because I had seen Blue's Clues. And Steve Burns taught me that cosmonauts are Russians in outer space. So I thought, I was onto something. Then came career day, and my homeroom teacher said, Max, do you know what cosmetology is? And I said, yeah, it's like stars and planets and the galaxy, right? She goes, no, it's primarily women doing hair and nails on other women. And I said, that's gross. And she said, well, you can stay with me. And I said, who do you have? And she says, I have the mortician. And I said, who's that? And she said, it's usually a man doing hair and nails on dead people. And I said, that's less gross. And it should have been a huge waving pride flag that I would come out as queer later in life, but it wasn't because I was a child. But I did. I'm pansexual, which is very similar to bisexual. It's like bisexual with a couple asterisks. I used to say at this bit that if you have questions about that, you can ask me afterwards, though it would be weird if you did. Somebody finally took me up on it and asked me. It was weird. The door was closed. Don't ask me questions about my sexuality. Anyways, because of that, I pay a lot of attention to LGBTQ, HIJ, KLMNOP representation in the media. And some of you are probably at this point in the joke going, wait a minute, Max. This joke is on your first album. Why are you repeating a joke that we've already heard? That's because it got updated, so bear with me for the people who don't know the joke. Anyways, about 7 years ago, my favorite ad campaign of all time ran. And it was from the Mike and Ike Candy Company, and they addressed a lot of things very quickly. They addressed that Mike and Ike are people. They gave them caricatures. They addressed that not only are they people, they're a gay married couple. And, oh no, they got divorced. So you would go to Walgreens, you buy a box of Mike's or a box of Ike's. It was the same candy, just different names on it. And this is a real ad campaign. You can look it up on YouTube. And afterward, they dissolved the caricatures. They got back together. Either they're remarried, they're business partners, they're fuck buddies. I don't know. I don't care. I'm just glad I can eat them in unison. And I loved that ad campaign for 2 reasons. One, I believe Mike and Ike is an American company, and they addressed gay marriage before it was like the corporate thing to do in this country. Pretty cool. I also like that ad campaign because they're realistic, and they addressed gay divorce, a thing we might be hit with in waves by the time we leave this venue. We're really good at leaving each other, and gay marriage has been legal just long enough for gay divorce to become a mainstream thing, I think. Anyways, I did that joke in Tennessee last July, And afterwards, I can't do a southern accent, so I do an auctioneer instead. Afterwards, this southern comedian came up to me and said, listen, man, I love that joke so much, but I gotta tell you, I like gay divorce way more than I like gay marriage. And out loud, I said something like, uh-huh. And inwardly, I thought, I have to warn the North about you. So, I've warned you. There's a pretty well-off comedian in Tennessee who loves when gay people leave each other. I don't know. Let's see. I'll voice the room again. Anybody here ever been cheated on? None of you have been cheated on. Okay, you're nodding. I asked nervously, very briefly, what happened.
Oh, it was the worst. It was on my holiday at the time. It was on 420.
Oh, man, that is a bad day for it. Getting cheated on the high holiday. I was cheated on. When you found out you were cheated on, anybody else was cheated on, did you find out because something started growing on you that wasn't there before?
It was a friend of mine, and he told me that he did it.
All right, that's better than my story. So that's what happened to me. Something started growing on me that wasn't there before, so I went to an urgent care place. This is also a true story, as ridiculous as it's about to get. I went to urgent care, and they looked at me and they were like, whoa, that's really bad. That's HPV, and that means you can never have babies because you will murder the woman. And I said, that is bad news for somebody who really wants babies. And he went, yeah. And then he brought in his other doctor friend to look at me who went, whoa, that's really bad. And I said, don't show your friends. I know what my penis looks like. Don't tell other people. I know it's bad. He did nothing to help me. So then I went to my primary care physician thinking, like, he's my real doc, he can help me out. And for lack of a better phrase, I exposed myself to him. And he literally went, ew, gross, and then left the room for such a long time that eventually I also left the room, was never billed for the appointment, and have not seen him since. This story takes place over 2 years ago. I might be very medically unwell. If anybody here is a doctor or thinks they might have it in them, give me a checkup. Anyways, then I went to Planned Parenthood because I thought, like, they're the genital people. They can help me out. And they were very nice. The nurse was very sweet. And she came up to me and she said, look, bad news, it is HPV. Good news, you can have babies without murdering people. All you have to do, and she said this very calm and nonchalantly, all you have to do is take this cream that I, Max Shultz, affectionately refer to as dick burning cream. Rub it all over your genitals. It will burn all the skin off, but then you'll be fine. And I said, that's a weird deal with the devil, but I'll take it. And that's exactly what happened. It burned all the skin off. It was the worst pain I've ever felt. But now, Justin, I can only give you HPV if we're very unlucky. Which to a lot of people is how having babies works. You just get very unlucky. And Planned Parenthood can help you with that too. They're there for all your genital wants and needs. This is just a very long PSA for Planned Parenthood. Before I was cheated on, after I was cheated on, probably while I was being cheated on, I lived with a whole bunch of people. One of them is named Nancy. Nancy's about 55 years old. That's important in about 45 seconds. And after I was cheated on, I did the thing a lot of us do when you've been cheated on or left romantically or sexually. I started sleeping with a lot of people from the internet. If you've never tried it, it's a lot of fun. I recommend being a whore for a while. But only, you dose yourself. Anyways, I was doing that, but the problem was Nancy would be asleep when I would bring these people home, but she'd be awake drinking her tea as they would leave the house. So from Nancy's point of view, she just saw woman after woman leave the house but never arrive, and also probably never come back. So one day she turned to her other roommate, Jordan, and said to him, listen, I'm cool with it, but how does Max afford all these prostitutes? And then Jordan moved out and never corrected her. And then I moved out and never corrected her. So for a short period of time, Nancy just thought I was a baller. And look at me. I'm not a baller. But I sure am when I fuck imaginary prostitutes. The only time I refer to anybody as such. And if that's the case, for a while I was quite the baller. Anyways, I hate putting these two jokes next to each other, but they have to go next to each other. I go from fucking imaginary prostitutes to children, and there's no... Anyways, when I live with those people, I live with Nancy and basically her whole family. I live with her son Corey, and his daughter, who for the remainder of this joke will be referred to as my 7-year-old roommate, because I was asked to not say her name. This was the height of COVID, and during the height of COVID, a lot of people took up hobbies. Maybe they exercised, or they wrote, or they learned a new musical instrument. I did all of those things, but I also babysat a lot. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't have kids, so I learned a lot about babysitting, about children, and I learned that for little girls it is very common to take a doll or a baby doll, assimilate it to human status, and make it do things like go to the park, or eat with you, or go outside, or whatever, go to the beach. That's very common, I guess. I didn't know that. What's not very common is exactly what I just described, with upwards of, or exactly 8 dolls. To put it in perspective, there were many nights nobody that was actually breathing could eat at the dinner table because the girls got there first. Do you see the problem I have? There was one day we were hanging out, me, her dad, and the girls, and we were outside grilling, and she pointed to one of them and said, "Max, it's this girl's 8th birthday. Wish her a happy birthday." And I said, "How does that work? You're the mom, and you're 7. And she goes, "Max, in their world, I'm 22. And I said, "Oh, does that make me and everybody else like equivalently older?" She goes, "Yes." A few days after that, I'm helping her with her math homework, just me and her. We're babysitting her. And she goes, "Max, I can't figure out this problem. It's 60 minus 20. I can't figure out subtract. It doesn't work in my head." And I wasn't a very good babysitter. I was more of like a friend than a babysitter. I said something to the effect of, "That's okay. You're 7. You don't need math. You'll figure this out later." And she said, "All right, thanks, Max." She went away and played. Week after that, we're hanging out, me, her, and the girls again. And she goes, "Max, it's my 29th birthday in the girls' world." And I said, "How does that work? You were 22 like a week and a half ago." And she goes, "Yeah, but I thought about it. If I was 22, that her when I was 14, I didn't like that, so I aged myself up to make it more appropriate." Bullshit about that math homework. Bullshit, you couldn't do subtraction, but you got basic algebra off the top of your head. Of course, I didn't say bullshit, but I want to say bullshit. The only other thing I'm going to tell you about my 7-year-old roommate is that all the girls, or 7, I should say, of the girls, were uniform. Same make and model of doll, except they had different eye, hair, and dress color. Other than that, they were exactly the same. And one of them, the middle-aged girl, was different. It was a regular run-of-the-mill, nothing descriptive about it, Barbie. And one day I said, "Why does this girl look so different?" And she said, "Max, I can't tell you." Oh, I left out. She was the mom, but of course, Batman was the dad. I should explain, we had a Batman doll that was about her size and weight that she would drag around by the cape all around the house. Anyways, I said, "Why is this one different?" She goes, "Well, fine, I'll tell you." And she brings out from behind her a Barbie the size of her and Batman and says, "This is the mom." Which was a 7-year-old's way of saying, "Look, Batman left for a while, met this bitch, had a baby, got back to you. These are my kids. Fuck her. Stop talking about it." And to me, I don't know, that just read big, loud, and clear coping mechanisms. I don't know. I just think she had a lot to learn. It was great. That was very silly. You cool if we get the darkest the set's gonna get? That cool with everybody? We're gonna get real dark for like a minute and a half. About, I don't know, a year and a half ago, I realized that about 2 years ago, I was sexually assaulted, which is not funny. What is funny is that the next day, the guy called me and said, "Hey, what happened last night? I was blackout drunk." And I told him, and he said, "That's not my fault. I was blackout drunk." And I said, "Whoa, it is your fault. The worst thing I ever did blackout drunk was spill bong water on Settlers of Catan, and then I bought a new Settlers of Catan. You can't make me untouch your dick. No, you can't come over." That's what he was asking to do. And I'm an idiot because I don't ever block people. So this guy still hits me up every like 4 to 6 months with like, "Hey, want to hang out?" And I don't ever respond, but I mean, part of me is just like, man, more fuel to keep this joke in the set. Fuck that guy. Piece of shit. That was very dark. We're gonna get very silly. Anybody here ever take a shit in public and experience something fucking wild? No, just me. That's all right. So I was taking a shit in Market Basket. Not this one, but one very similar to the one across the street. And I should explain that in order to poop in an older Market Basket, you have to go through the front doors like a customer, march yourself to the back of the store like an employee, go through rubber double doors that say employees only, and then eventually past that there is a bathroom that is for public use. It's almost like they're hiding it. Anyways, I had just gone into the stall, sat down, locked the door, the whole bit, and then this 17-year-old kid bursts through those rubber double doors and just goes, "Fuck this place, this is bullshit, I can't get any respect here, fuck Market Basket, ah!" And he continued to monologue like that for about 25 minutes. So for about 25 minutes, I pretended to poop because I didn't want to make my presence known. Afterwards, he left. I don't know if he quit, got fired, fell asleep. I don't know or care. And then I left. I mean, I cleaned up, but I left. And I don't mean I returned to shopping. I mean, I went through the rubber double doors, through the front double doors, back to my car, drove away because I was not in Market Basket for food. I was there to poop. And that's not why anybody goes to Market Basket. So I think it's my fault that this kid had a temper tantrum. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Karma, you know, the whole bit. Really ruined his day. I mentioned earlier that I was sleeping with a bunch of people. I was fucking imaginary prostitutes. I had HPV and all those things, and that would lead you to believe that things aren't going well. But things are going very well in my life. I'm dating somebody who's you've all met because you all came here, and she's running the counter, and we just moved in together. Thank you, Michaela. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. We moved in together. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made. But before you move in with somebody, there's steps you have to take, like meeting each other's family. And Haley and I met in West Virginia because that's where she's from, and then I convinced her to move north. And we met in West Virginia because I was seeing my sister and family who lived down there, and I was there for about a week, and I thought to myself, well, I'm single. I'm sleeping with imaginary prostitutes as far as Nancy's concerned. How difficult would it be for me to get laid? And on the last day in West Virginia, I found out it was pretty easy, and we've been together ever since. I mentioned my sister lives down there, and my sister's name is Maura. And the biggest difference I like to use on stage between West Virginia and up here is that, like, up here, if a dog wandered into your driveway, right? And at first you thought it was a stray, and then you looked closer and saw it had tags and a collar and a name and a phone number and whatever else. You would try to get this dog home, right? Like, you would call the number, you would post a picture on Facebook, like, hey, whose dog is this, something like that. That same thing happened to my sister, and she posted on Facebook, "Who wants a free dog? His name's Skippy and energetic as hell." Which is pretty much how my sister gets all of her pets. She has 3 kids, and the cats and dogs, usually cats, wander in. About a year later, they wander back out into the world. That way, she never has to explain mortality. They never die. And she thinks it's genius. I think it's cruel. I'll let you guys decide. It's nuts. When I met Haley's dad and stepmother, I almost said mother-in-law, and I was like, that's not the right thing, right? That would, in theory, be my mother. When I met her stepmother and father, they were watching an old episode of the Andy Griffith Show. And at first I thought, all right, cool, I can get behind this. I like old television. I like black and white TV. I like old humor. Cool. And there was a gag in the episode where Andy Griffith got hit in the face with a pie. And they laughed. For 4 fucking minutes. They laughed like it was the funniest thing that anybody's ever done. They laughed like it's the funniest thing they'd ever seen. And they laughed like nothing will ever top this in humor ever. And then around the 3-minute mark, her stepmother turned to me and said, we think this is so funny because it is the most perverse thing our religion will let us consume. And once again, out loud, I said something like, and inwardly I was like, you can never hear the set. Like, you can't know what I do. And of course, Haley told her dad that I wrote this joke, and he went to work and said, oh, a Boston comedian wrote a joke about me, how cool is that? And I was like, man, I said fucking that joke. I talked about my dick for 4 minutes earlier, like, he can't hear this. He'll go to hell, not me, like, by his standards. He'll just evaporate, I think. And now I get to do basically this set in front of him in a month, and I'm very nervous. Haley and I agree on most things. Things are going very well for us, which is great. There's one major thing we don't agree on, and it comes up a lot because I talk about it on stage almost nightly, and she's here all the time, so I should stop doing that. Anyways, I broke the cardinal rule of going to the laundromat recently, which I don't know if you know what that is. The cardinal rule of going to the laundromat is you're supposed to thoroughly examine the inside of the machine before you toss your clothes into it. I thought I had done that, but after the clothes were done in the washer, I pulled them out, and out also came a human tooth. but I used sound logic. I cleaned the clothes, therefore I cleaned the tooth, so I picked it up. It wasn't mine, I checked, and it didn't look familiar like anybody I knew, so I did what I think was the responsible and appropriate next move. I put it on top of the washing machine it came out of and left it there. And then I went home and I told my brother and Haley about this, and Haley said, "You did what? That could have been a necklace." And I said, and I love her to death. I plan to spend my life with this woman. But that's bonkers. And then she says, "I have a human tooth necklace that I paid $35 for. I don't know whose tooth it is. And now that tooth is worth $72. This would have been a good turn on investment." That's like if I came up here to do this set and just didn't even address that around my neck was like a thumb or a pinky toe or a rib or something. Like, and then afterwards you were like, "Oh, what's that?" I was like, "I don't know. I just bought a toe." Like, it's crazy. I don't agree with it. I think wearing a human remains around your neck is weird. But every time I do this joke, it'll probably happen tonight, somebody comes up to me afterwards and is like, "I have a human tooth necklace. Your girlfriend's right, and you're an asshole." So if that's you, tell me I'm an asshole later. We're approaching Thanksgiving, but after trick-or-treat ended, Haley and I handed out candy, and after the trick-or-treaters went inside, Haley turned to me and said, "Well, it's Christmas." And I did not know that's how holidays worked. I thought we had like Halloween, nothing, Thanksgiving, nothing, Christmas, a week of nothing, New Year's. And she said, no, it's Halloween for a month. And then the second the trick-or-treaters go inside, it's Christmas until the morning of Thanksgiving. And then once we are done eating, it's Christmas again until the end of January 1st. And I said, "That is not right. But I tell you this to ask, even though you don't have a choice, do you care if I tell you a shitty Christmas joke?" Fantastic. No one said a word. I got a couple nods. Great. Bunch of years ago, I went to UMass Lowell, which was a terrible decision. I hate that place. Unless you go there and love it, in which case, yay! But anyways, I went to UMass Lowell, and I was running a Secret Santa with about a dozen people. And after we drew names, you're Dan, right? I'm going to use you for this bit. Afterwards, we'll say Dan is my friend, and Dan and I picked names. We got to set a $20 limit, which is about normal for a Secret Santa. He turned to me and said, "Max, what do I do if I don't know the person I drew very well?" And I said, "Well, Dan, you get them something fun. Like, give them that you like or a gift card. Have fun with it, right?" Okay. He thinks for a minute. This is a true story. It's not about Dan, but it's a true story. He goes, "What if I buy them a dildo?" Well, Dan, there's a couple problems with that. One, I don't know how many of you buy sex toys regularly, but dildos don't cost $20. They're quite expensive, and unless you buy them used, which opens a whole other can of worms that this joke is simply not about. The other problem is, like, I don't use dildos, or if I do, I don't use them very often. But let's pretend I am a connoisseur. I've got drawers full of them, wall mounts, they're oozing out of my apartment, and Dan bought me the best one by a mile for Christmas. I could never use it, because every time I would open the packaging and go, "Dan." And Dan seems lovely. He really does. The little bit I've talked to him, he seems great. The person the story's about is great. But I don't want any part of Dan and any part of me. I just don't. And I told him that, and he said, "You're right, this is a problem. What if we still give them the dildo, but insist they use it for something else?" And I said, "How's that going to work? It's kind of like a one-use item, one-trick pony type of thing." And he said, no, you just got to be creative. Like, you could hollow it out, make it a salt shaker. You could really hollow it out, make it a ketchup bottle, but don't think too much about that. You could use it as like a paperweight or a doorstop, but if you did any of those things, you would have to really sell it. And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, like, let's say next year for Thanksgiving, your parents come over for the first time you've ever hosted, and your mom walks in and says, 'Max, it's great to see you,' gives you a big hug, and he goes, 'Max, is that a vibrator holding the door open?' And you have to confidently say, 'Mom, how dare you? That is my purple vibrating doorstop my good friend Dan bought me last Christmas. It's my favorite thing. Get out of here.' And then either your mother leaves you alone and accepts that you're her dumbest and weirdest child, or she gives you a 45-minute tutorial on how sex toys work. Either way, it's very weird, but in theory happening to all of you and not me, so I'm happy with the situation. Of course, nobody got the dildo, but I use this joke still to tell you all that, like, give a dildo as a Secret Santa gift, and then tell me what happens, so I can make this joke better. I mentioned at the top that I'm not conservative at all. I'm the furthest thing from, but I have this friend Bill who is very conservative, and he asked me one day recently, Max, why are we friends? People in the political divide tend to not hang out nowadays. And I said, yeah, but like you think that like gay people, for example, and trans people and people of color are people, and your friends don't always think that. And he was, they are people. And I said, great, Bill, we can hang out. And I don't know if what I just told you pertains to this story about Bill, but I think it might. And about twice a month, unprovoked, Bill will interject a conversation and say, Max, you know, 9/11 was a tragedy. Many lives lost. Horrible day for this country, just awful. But it was a beautiful day outside. What the fuck is that? That's ridiculous. That's like, it's like a catchphrase, but it's too long to be a catchphrase. It's like he remembers 9/11 as just another beautiful day until it wasn't. Like, it's just weird. I don't understand. Like, I don't know anybody other than Bill and a couple audience members here and there who remember any weather from over 20 years ago. Like, if you were like, what happened October 11th, 1999, I'd be like, I don't know. You could ask me what the weather was last Wednesday, and I'm like, I was, did it rain? I don't know. But Bill has a fond memory of the weather on 9/11, and I find that very peculiar, and I need to impose it on my audiences. I have a couple more, but thank you all for being here. This is great. I really appreciate all of you. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. And everybody that's already gone up and all those things. Yeah, thank you so much. This is very special to me. This is the part of the show where I make you all turn on me if I haven't already. I'm a big advocate for therapy. I think everybody should go to therapy if you can afford it. If you don't think you need to go, you probably need to go more than the rest of us, because that's just how things like that seem to work. I am self-proclaimed crazy, so I have both a therapist and a psychologist. The difference is my therapist listens to my problems and asks me how I'm doing. My psychologist says, Max, are you okay? Do you want drugs? Okay, bye. He's my favorite drug dealer that I have. I love that man. But after copays, he still costs about $150 for about a 4-minute appointment. And I learned that at least in the states of Massachusetts and New York, you only have to meet with your psych doctor once every calendar year to get refills for that year. So when he says to me, Max, you want to see me again in 3 weeks? I say, you're fucking out of your mind. I'll see you next year, you asshole. But thanks for the drugs. He prescribed me both Abilify and Lexapro. I take Abilify because I hate myself and I'm angry, and now I don't feel that way. And I take Lexapro because I hate other people and I'm angry, and now I don't feel that way. And my psych guy thinks he's a comedian, but he's really, really, really bad at timing. And when he prescribed me Lexapro, he was going over the side effects. And he says, well, it'll make you lethargic, it'll make you gain weight, and you can never have sex again. And then he is radio silent for about a minute. And then he says, I'm just kidding, sex is going to be great. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, for women who take Lexapro, it makes it really hard for them to orgasm. I said, that's awful. He goes, it is awful. But for men who take Lexapro, it makes it really hard for them to orgasm. You're going to last forever. And he was wrong, but it was wishful thinking. My therapist, this is really what I'm going to leave with. I don't know if my therapist is a good therapist or if he's just what I've always wanted my mother to be. By which I mean somebody who I talk to for 1 hour a week. And in the interim period, we don't dare speak unless one of us is dying. I told you about my meds. You all know I'm the one dying. And but more than that, I mean, she doesn't always give the best advice. And this is where I make you turn on me. A bunch of years ago, I was dating somebody who was engaged to be married. I sort of caused an affair knowingly, and it was fucked up and not cool of me. And I told my therapist about this, and she said, Max, you have to get out of this situation. It's bad for you, bad for her fiance, anybody in the future. Bad, bad, bad. And I thought we had squashed the conversation. And then she looked up to the ceiling. I will never forget this. Oh, this is true. And she said, well, and she lowered her eyes slowly, shrugged her shoulders, and said, fuck her once. And that's Tracy the therapist. I've been Max Shultz. Thank you so much.